Hey everybody, and welcome back to Myst 5, End of Ages. We are here in Kavir again. We've returned right back to where we started, and the time has finally come to choose what we're going to do with the tablets. And as Esher stated, Yeesha is here. So, we've got a couple of options at the very least. We can give the tablet to Yeesha, or we can give the tablet to Esher. Well, as I've stated multiple times throughout the Let's Play, Esher is not someone I really trust, so Yeesha did state earlier that she didn't want it, and Esher is pretty much warning us not to give it to her. But maybe it is the right choice. She is the grower after all. Let's see. She's not really... Oh, there we go. She's holding out her hands for it. She doesn't really look very eager to get it, though. Okay, I think there was an animation missing there, because I seem to recall when I first played this that the tablet was shown in her hands, but her hands just went right through it, and so she couldn't really use it. So yeah, basically the exact same thing happened before. How do I get back in there? I want to go to Myst and see what's going on over there, because it doesn't seem like we can do anything more with any of this. We certainly can't use any of the links here. The tablets left the glowy sort of thing there. Where's the... Oh, here it is. It's over this way. So let's go back to the room with the book, Atris's room, as we'll call it. Well, true to his word, Esher did unlock the book. Oh. That does not look very healthy. Well, let's go and see what happened here. Well, we can't even get into the forechamber. The ship is here, but it's all completely tipped over. It's even punched a hole in the dock. Oh. Well, that's not good. Well, I guess we can have a look around. Can't even use that. The gears are still here. At least they're pretty sturdy. And the channelwood tree is pretty visible there. Uh-oh.
After everything, did you not trust me? After all the help I provided, all the aid and assistance? Well done. Now it has slipped through her hands. Wasted. Fool. Now your journey has been a waste, and this precious island that once represented escape is now your prison. They've all failed. You have accomplished nothing. And there is no way from here. No one will come for you. Myst Island is your end. Forever.
Okay, so Esher is just going to leave us here, apparently. I don't know why he couldn't just grab onto us and then use his borrow cloth thing to get us out of here. But I can understand, he's kind of upset with us because we didn't do what he asked us to. Can we even get in the planetarium? We can. But wow, this has certainly seen better days. So what's in here? Oh my goodness. Well, the library certainly looks a lot different than it did in Uru. I mean, in Uru it still looked like it was intact. I mean, here all the wood is kind of rotting, and we got the painting all gone. Both paintings, actually. Of course, the red and blue books still have the burn marks there. We can't even go into the fireplace, and there's this thing here in the middle of the floor. Oh, hey, it's the map on the ground. Whoa! Okay, we got some lightning here. Oh, the ship doors open. That's at least nice. Can't use any of this though. Can we use any of these? No, it's not even there anymore. Man, what a sad state this is in. The fountain is completely dry too. Kind of weird considering it's just raining all the time. The log cabin is thankfully still mostly intact, although this is busted. Can't use the wheel. Well, the safe's still here, but the numbers are all kind of sideways. The tree still standing here. At least it's around. And the clock tower. What has become of you? Look at all this. The gears are just kind of halfway up. At least we can go inside. But none of this works. Man. Man, it really is sad what's become of this place. But we are stuck here forever. Well, I suppose we have no choice but to restore our saved game and go back to, where is it? This? Yes, it's this one. Go back to Kavir. None of those paintings ended up being useful, did they? So, if Yeesha's not the answer, well, I guess we should try Esher then, right? Alright, so we're not going to give the tablet to Yeesha. Instead, we're going to go back to the Myst book again and take the tablet there. Maybe that thing in the library was meant for the tablets. The thing that we saw there. Let's see what this does. Do we put it here? I guess we do. Okay. Hey, Esher.
So, you listened to my wise counsel and have brought the tablet. There was no way for your feeble mind to comprehend the power of this bottle of tablet. It was meant for a worldling. Couldn't fully grasp that the master of the tablet was the master of the bottle, master of their full power. It was really only yours, briefly, and only then, to give to a true master. Did you think you would gain a piece of its power? Is that why you brought it? Or perhaps my words, perhaps I don't give myself enough credit. Regardless. Now, it is mine. Yes, my powerful servants, your new master is here. Let's see what remarkable feats you can perform for the new master of the art. Oh, yes. Thank you, idiot. You performed well enough. So, I give you this wonderful island. Consider it a missed opportunity.
Ouch.
And this island, that was always the place of escape, has now become your prison. Now, let's see where this power take me. Unlimited agents, an army of buffalo to do my bidding. Wow. Fun I will have.
Yeah, what fun. Well, I think that was arguably even worse as an option. So, I promised you guys earlier that I would let you read the transcripts of everything. I guess I forgot to do the Yeesha ending here, but I'll go ahead and just flip through these, and you can feel free to pause the video if you want to read. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and head back to Kavir, because obviously neither of these endings is the correct ending. And let's see, it's not that, this. I really don't like the fact that it always starts you on the first page. Alright, so let's restore our game. So, as Esher stated in that ending, whoever holds the tablet controls the borrow. And we know that Yeesha can't do it. Obviously, giving the tablet to Esher is a bad choice. So who should control the fate of the borrow? What about the borrow themselves? Can we put it down? We can. Well, let's see what happens here. Okay. Whoa!
I am set free. The slavery of 10,000 years is over. And the burden of my family is lifted from my weary heart. Praise the Maker. He brought you for this impossible task. You have done well, and many will rejoice.
Hey, borrow.
You have chosen the least as greatest. You have freed us all, yourself of pride, me of the burden, and the good borrow of their enslavement. You are worthy of the new Denis.
Whoa. Is that Atris?
Oh, my father.
My desert bird.
It's over. I didn't know if... I faltered. I was not always strong. I am so sorry.
No.
But what was asked of me, I have done. And now the tree grows again. Just to be your daughter again. Me.
My precious one. I'm so sorry. For this burden, this crushing weight. I cannot bear to think of it. But you carried it. I wish your mother could. You have truly become the grower. You bring Dunny back to life. Another circle closes. Another new tree grows again. Thank you, my old friend. Welcome to Rilishan, this new Dunny. It's been a long, long journey. Difficult journey. And I am old and weak. But I've lived long enough to see this day. To see my desert bird, my precious Yeesha return. As the grower. Filled with the wisdom of the Maker. Truly our long burden has been lifted. Now, my days can end. Here, peace.
Uh-oh.
You're taking me. Release me, I order you.
Oh.
I demand it. Let
Yes.
me go, you evil
There is
demon.
this to deal with.
You cannot
Yeah.
hold me. I am Esher I'm the grower! Where is this? You idiot! Moronic lump of filth! You are nothing! I needed the power! I needed it!
What?
He needed me! You threw it away to this witch and her legion of scum, the demon slaves! You've released the slaves as masters! You've turned the small to great!
Silence. You are no longer subject to the great. You have become great yourselves. Do with him as you should to the least, for I am no longer worthy to give counsel to you.
No, no!
I am not given easily to those not close to me. But you have chosen well, my friend, and have allayed my fears. Many have been freed. The least will be greatest again, as it was before we began. The old is gone, and the new begun to grow. This is the new Denis, restored and free. Over none, under only the Maker. This restoration of Denis is not a restoration of the outside, of structures and stone, but of the inside, of hearts and truth. For kingdoms are only as strong as the hearts of their people. Your heart is right.
Aw.
Welcome to this kingdom. Welcome to this new Denis.
Whoa. They can fly? Wait, they can carry us and they can fly? So that's for Yeesha, huh? Alright. So that is Myst 5 End of Ages. I'll talk more about the ending here in a little bit, but for now, I do want to get my thoughts out about the game, and, well, let's just put it this way. If you couldn't tell by some of my comments that I've made throughout the game, I really have not been a fan of this much at all. I have not exactly been a fan of this even since it came out. And the reasons for that are manyfold. I feel like I need to divide them up into categories if I'm going to properly review this. And there was actually a review online, I don't know if it's still around, that went into a lot of this, and it's where I'm getting a lot of this from. And if I can find it, I'll put a link to that in the description below, but I'll try to summarize it in a few major points and then dig deeper into those points as much as I can. So, the first thing about this game it's probably kind of obvious based on the way it flowed and the content in it, that was not exactly up to snuff, is the fact that it basically just took a bunch of unused content from Uru and decided to place it in the context of a completely new Myst game. And this, in and of itself, on paper, is not necessarily bad. As you guys might know, Uru is a game that I really enjoy a lot, and a lot of that had to do with just how rich a lot of the worlds were, how developed the lore was, just everything about Uru added up to a classic Cyan game, something that was very much an exercise in world building, and Cyan is great at world building. But this game felt a little bit half-hearted, and a lot of that just had to do with the fact that these worlds just didn't feel that developed at all. They felt like unused ages that didn't quite make the cut for Uru, and after the online component of Uru was completely abandoned, they were just left in their unfinished state. I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but it definitely felt that way. But that's not even the worst of it. A lot of this has to do with the way the game plays as well, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the story here. Normally, one of the things that I really appreciate about Myst games is that they have a pretty rich story, and a lot of that has to do with how all the stuff you learn in the game ties to what you're doing and the choices you make as the player character, particularly at the end of the game. But in this game, a lot of that is thrown out the window. Now here's what I mean by that. Normally in a Myst game, you have two choices, it would seem, but then there ends up being another option that you start to gradually learn more about as you uncover more info throughout the game. So for example, let's take the original Myst. The original Myst, you go, you see the red and blue books, each of the brothers gives you a warning that the other is not to be trusted, etc., and everything leads up to that final choice where you have to finally realize that the brothers are in fact both evil and that Atris is the one you need to trust. But you get there gradually by learning more about the brothers by visiting each of the worlds. It's not just something that comes up at the very end of the game. Although they do give you their big spiel at the very end of the game, so I guess it sort of does. But still, all the exploration you do is tied to the idea that you're trying to learn more about the brothers. And the game does a decent job of that. Riven is a little bit different, but it still accomplishes this in a lot of respects. You do know who the villain is. You do know what you need to do for the most part, although there is one little wrinkle that you kind of have to figure out at the very end. But the exploration of the world tells you more about Gen as a villain, and all of that than just about any sort of lazy exposition would have done. I mean, all of the stuff that defines who he is seeded throughout that world, and as you begin to put the pieces together, it's a very satisfying feeling you get when you finally get it to the point where you understand the man. Myst 3 does something very similar with Savidro. In that game, we see the effects of what Cirrus and Aganar and their plunder of Myst Island's ages had on those ages populations in the character of Savidro, and we have to learn more about him as we go throughout the course of the game. We start to pick up journal entries from him. We learn more about his plight. We learn more about his homeworld and everything. And by the end of the game, we actually sympathize more with him. And that is no small accomplishment considering the presence he had at the very beginning. That was pretty terrifying. Myst 4 had a very similar structure as Myst 1, where we had to deal with the brothers again. We had to discover what they did on the prison ages, and if they changed or not. And by the time the game ends, we have a choice to make. Uru doesn't really have any of this, but I would say that it makes up for it somewhat by actually doing a lot of world building. So you can see right here that this game doesn't really do this. This game does present you with a choice at the very end, which we saw in this video. The problem with this choice is that it basically is sort of laid out for you at the very start. We hear from Yeesha at the very beginning, and she basically says, "Don't give me the tablet." Esher, we hear from at the very beginning, and he says, "Don't give Yeesha the tablet." So that option is pretty much eliminated. I mean, if you really stop and think about it. And I at first thought maybe the game was tricking us and we did need to give Yeesha the tablet, but I didn't really read the journal entries very extensively, so that was my fault. Esher, on the other hand, I mean, the guy is just so unhinged, and you know he's not to be trusted. And even if he didn't display any signs of being mad or anything, I mean, why would I trust this guy over the child of the main protagonist character of the series I've been playing for this long, right? So that's obviously not the answer, so there has to be a third option right off the bat. It's not something that you feel like you arrive at through all the exploration that you do throughout the game. I mean, all the stuff you do throughout the game is just busy work to get this MacGuffin that you eventually have to deal with at the very end, and that's basically it. So I don't really enjoy that element of the game. I don't like the story of this game. It feels very sloppily put together. The tablet is just such a thrown together, contrived MacGuffin that really has no history in the Myst universe at all. And yes, I understand that you could make the case that the Barrow are kind of the same way in Uru, but I would say that they did spend some time developing the Barrow's abilities, albeit imperfectly, in that game, whereas this just felt conjured out of thin air. Like, there wasn't really any sort of background to any of this at all, and everything just felt sloppily pieced together. But we're here to talk about gameplay, right? I mean, a review should talk about gameplay. So let's get to gameplay, because this is, I think, where the game fails even further, is the way it's set up. Now, much like the story, this game deviates from the other Myst games in ways that are not exactly very befitting for the series. So, if you look at most of the other Myst games, in fact, I would say all of the other Myst games, even Riven, which is kind of an exception to a lot of the rules here, succeed at being non-linear. The point of Myst is that you are supposed to make this adventure your own adventure. You're supposed to go into this world, inhabit it as yourself, and walk around making the choices and feeling like you do have some agency here. Now, obviously, the game has a set path for you to go on with respect to there being an introduction, a mid-game, and an end-game. But it's mostly the mid-game where you have some decisions to make about where you're supposed to go, what you can do. If you get stuck, you can go somewhere else. Now, technically, this game is non-linear, but it chooses to do its non-linearity in a very linear way, and then covers up for that with some rather sloppy workarounds. Most Myst games have what you would call a hub world. It's a place where you can go and you can access all the other books to all the other ages and get to there in whatever order you want. This game technically has a hub world. It's the Great Shaft. But the hub world of itself is very linear. Like, you go from point A at the very top at the volcano caldera all the way to the very bottom at the final rest area. And this is where this structure reveals its inherent flaws as far as trying to allow for some sort of non-linear option, because we have officially the most pointlessly silly age in any Myst game, guys, and that is Durabo. There is absolutely 0 point to this age, alright? Absolutely none. Thematically, like in universe, there's no reason for this age to exist. Because if someone was traveling to the Great Shaft, they would stop through the Great Shaft, they would stop at these rest areas and then move on. And I understand the concept of a rest age. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that from a lore perspective, but this age is basically just 4 tiny islands that are separated by bridges that have unlockable gates. Gates that, in real life, you could easily step over, rendering the entire point of the Journey of the Great Shaft useless. I mean, you could just go from one linking book, hop over another gate, and then get to the one for Lochion, and then you'll be at the bottom there. Or if you were starting at Lochion, you could go to the Tagira one, and then go up top. There's no point to Durabo, like, at all. I just don't get it. And it's only there just so that you could theoretically explore the ages in a non-linear fashion. You know, starting, if you were to go to Tagira, for instance, you could theoretically, if you got stuck, go back and then go further down, unlock the gate that goes back to Tagira, and then you could just travel there at will as you want. It would have been so much better to have a hub age where you can actually get to each age, you know, from an equal distance. It's not that difficult to do. And you could still do something where the Great Shaft is explored. Maybe that could have been the intro for the game, for example. You don't have to completely abandon that idea. Maybe Durabo could have just been open from the start. It could have, I mean, if they wanted to go the lazy route, they could have just opened up all the bridges, had all the stuff available. But that's not entirely the only problem with the non-linearity, or lack of non-linearity in this game. I happen to know some people who play these games in such a way that they refuse to link out of one world until they've completely explored all of it. And this is where the way the ages play out is pretty flawed in and of itself. Because if you were to go all the way down to the very bottom of the Great Shaft, having completely explored it, and then visit Lochion first, you'll get to see the most unhinged Esher is, at least until the bad Myst Island ending where you give him the tablet. And honestly, that feels like it's not necessarily earned until you get to that point in the game. Because the order of the ages obviously is supposed to be Tagira first, Lakion last. Lakion is definitely the most challenging of the 4 ages. It's got the most puzzles, the most pedestals to get through. It's definitely the capstone of everything you've learned about how to use the slates, what kind of puzzles to expect, everything. And Esher is certainly at his most unhinged. So if you go to this age first, you're going to get a very accelerated character development that doesn't feel in any way earned at all. And the inverse, or the same could be true for the inverse, which is that the first age seems to be Tagira, or at least it seems to be intended to be Tagira, because everything you do at that age seems to be an introduction to how to use the slates. And that's it. There's only one real puzzle of any consequence at that age, because I do not consider that put the slate on the thin ice and have it cracked, like, that's not a puzzle. There is a picture of a slate on the ground. That is no way a puzzle. So that basically just leaves that whole ice thing where you have to just redirect the bacteria or whatever. That's practically the only puzzle you have to do in that age. And then what is up with that squinting that you have to do at the very end to get to the keep? I mean, that's pretty out of place for a Myst game. I mean, I can understand the thing you do in Lakion where you have to activate the wind to see the flag. Like, that's an example of something that feels more Myst. What you do on Tagira is not something that's very, it's not something I'm accustomed to as a player of a Myst game, you know, of the series in general. So overall, Tagira is pretty bad as an age. I mean, it's got so many issues from a structural standpoint that the idea of an introductory age feels more suited toward, you know, maybe the beginning of the game, not the mid-game, you know, as it was trying to do there. And that's why I feel like the Great Shaft should have been the introductory, you know, early game age for Myst 5. Todelmer, I didn't mind Todelmer very much. I feel like there was a little bit too much pixel hunting type stuff there, but I really enjoyed the scale of that age. I love the visuals. I thought it was very Uru-esque. I did enjoy the thematic elements in it. I think it was one of the better places in the game. Noloben is another one of those ages that feels very empty, and I feel like it was very unfinished. The big puzzle is getting into the lab, and then you have the whole pressure pad thing with drawing the snake symbol. I guess that would be the second puzzle, and that's pretty much it. There's really nothing more to do there. The getting into the lab part's pretty much the big challenge in that age, which is a shame because that's supposed to be Escher's home. Which leaves Lakion, which to me felt like the most Myst-like of all the other ages, or of all the ages in the game. It had thematic elements, it had a sense of history behind it, you felt like there was a story to be told there, the puzzles tied into that story for quite a bit of it, but it did have one of the most disappointing moments of the game for me, and that was the jeweler door. Now here's what I mean by this. You go into Lakion, you see Esher standing by the trade house area, and he says, hey, you know, this area is locked, but you can go through the back way, right? So, this is nothing new for the Myst series, right? You've seen locked doors and obstructions before, and usually, whenever you face something like that, getting inside an area like that is pretty rewarding. And the classic example that I can think of is Gen's laboratory on Riven, where you have to turn off the fan and all that to get inside. That area is probably one of my favorite areas, just because once you get in there, oh my goodness, there is a whole treasure trove of things to see and read and look at. A lot of them are useless, but they tell you a lot about Gen as a character, you know, and you feel like you're getting to know this world more. The trade house here, none of that. There's one clue for the puzzle you'll encounter later on in the slave tunnels, or the prison tunnels, and some paintings to look at, and that's it. No journals to read, no useless artifacts to go through that look cool, nothing. And this is a design trend that permeates pretty much the whole game. Like, everything is just reduced to function. There's really no point beyond what the game offers you as far as the gameplay and the advancement and progression through all the puzzles. And that's practically it. Yeah. And I think that's really sad because this game offers you this real-time 3D movement, and you can go so many places, but there's so much less to actually see, which is kind of the irony of this, because Myst is normally known for having such rich environments and things to explore, and we don't really get that here, you know? So that's my little spiel about the ages. I just felt really cheated out of this game. And then there's the ending. I actually didn't mind the ending very much. I think it was actually really interesting. I thought Esher was kind of silly at the end, especially in the good ending. But even in the bad ending, he was just cackling and doing all kinds of silly things. I really enjoyed getting to see Myst Island again, all dilapidated and everything was just falling apart. In some ways, it was kind of a fitting metaphor for the series, you know? I feel like Myst has kind of run its course, and we should move on, which I'm thankful Cyan did when they did Abduction as a Kickstarter, and apparently now they're doing another game called Firmament at the time of this recording, which will release, I believe, next year, if I'm not mistaken. So seeing that at the very end, I felt like was very appropriate. I think it really suited where the series had come. The other thing was the Releashon ending, the good ending. I was really happy that we finally got to see Releashon. I just wish there was more to do. That was all I wished for that. It was kind of like the Moiety Age in Riven and Narayan in Myst 3, where you got to see this little tease of this, but you really didn't get to see it. That's one thing about the Myst series that I'm not too big a fan of. But I'm glad we got to see Atris again. I noticed he called us my old friend, even though we're not his old friend. Maybe he's just growing old or something. So that's a little confusing. But overall, I thought the ending was pretty decent, Escher's silliness notwithstanding. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. This game is definitely my least favorite of the Myst games. However, you know, I still enjoyed Let's Playing it, even with the bumps in the road that we had, and the bugs and everything. I just wish that Cyan did not position this as this big, grand end of the series. I think that's the biggest disappointment for me, because that was basically what they were touting this as in the marketing. It was even called Myst 5, even though it's basically just a sequel to Uru. And they tried to kind of tie it all together with all of Yeesha's journal entries scattered throughout the Great Shaft that told the whole series' story. But it kind of felt, again, it felt sloppily put together. It almost kind of reminded me, if you've seen the James Bond movie Spectre, you know, it came out in 2015. There was this little bit toward the end where you got to see the villains of the previous Daniel Craig Bond films, and they were trying to basically say, hey, you remember all these people who are now dead? Well, guess what? This organization called Spectre, they were all tied to it. And, you know, now Bond is fighting the big bad guy over this. Yeah, that's kind of what this felt like. And I'm kind of sad that that's what this series ended on. So, because of that, that's why I decided to do this game now instead of saving this one for last, because I vastly prefer the original Myst and Myst 4 to this game. So I'm going to be doing those next as far as Myst games are concerned. So thanks so much for watching this Let's Play, everybody. Sorry this little review at the end ended up turning into a big monster review / rant. But I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves here. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that bell to get notified of the next Let's Play. But until then, thanks again, and I will catch you on the flip side.